my talking.
We've got a 9-minute meeting planned, but we can certainly be flexible for that. I think.
Can someone say something so we know our speakers work?
Yes, we're actually talking.
And we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, 2 more coming in. And we are recording the entire meeting as of right now. So we're 3 minutes over. Todd, I would go ahead and start, and as other people come in, I will add them into the meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, Kendall. Welcome, everybody. I hope everybody can hear us well. Very excited to be here tonight to present what we've come up with for the Eureka Broadway Multimodal Corridor Plan. This has been some time in the making, and we've come up with some solutions that we feel confident will be met positively by the community. This is a result of a lot of outreach to date, a lot of analysis, a lot of stakeholder meetings. This is only the second public workshop, but we've had a lot of stakeholder focus group meetings, and we reached out to the business community as well. So we feel that we've encapsulated the concerns and priorities of the community well through that process. So my name is Todd Tregenza. I'm with GHD, the consulting firm that was hired to complete this study. And what I'd like to do before going any further is just give everyone that's part of the project team an opportunity to introduce themselves, starting with maybe Marcella at HCOG. It's technically the PM on the agency side, and so maybe you want to go first?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I'm Marcella May, Executive Director for the Humboldt County Association of Governments, also known as HCOG. And we're also the designated regional transportation planning agency for Humboldt County, and that's one of the main reasons why we are here tonight. I just want to begin by thanking everyone for taking your time to participate. Public participation is key not only to a successful project, but it's a necessary requirement to secure transportation funding. So tonight, it's my opinion, we have an opportunity to transform Broadway. And I am hoping that you give it some thought. There will be some give and takes. You don't have to make your decisions tonight. We can accept comments. You can call me directly, email. We even have a fax number still here at HCOG. We have a website. So please, I'm hoping to get your involvement. Without it, this project won't be a success. Thank you.
And then Jesse, do you want to go next? You're muted.
Yeah. Thank you. Unmuted now. Yeah, thank you. My name is Jesse Willer. I'm the city engineer for the city of Eureka, and I've been representing the city of Eureka as far as their side of this project team. Just again, I want to kind of touch on a number of the same things that Marcella did. Really glad to have you folks joining us. Looks like we have a good crowd here. Your feedback is necessary for this project to ever, move forward and to shape this project going forward into what it could be. So we have a lot of information to present to you tonight. We just ask that you take it in, think about it. There'll be opportunities later after the presentation as well to provide that feedback going forward. If you had a chance to think something through or talk it over, just, we'll be looking on the project website to take feedback through there. So thank you, and we're looking forward to this presentation.
Thanks, Jesse. And do we have Brad from Caltrans? Did you want to say a few words, Brad?
Sure, I'll just introduce myself. Brad Mann, I'm the Deputy District Director for Planning. Caltrans been part of this process all the way through, and very interested to hear what the public has to say tonight. We do have a few other members from our Caltrans team in the audience, so I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Clancy DeSmet. I work in the Division of Planning with Brad, and I'm Climate Change Adaptation Branch Chief. Looking forward to hearing those too.
Anyone else?
I know Jesse's out there, but maybe he's being shy.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Jesse Robertson. I'm the grant administrator for this project, and Caltrans has partnered with the city and HCOG in an attempt to come up with something that may have exceeded Caltrans's purview in the past in terms of going beyond meeting traffic forecasts and meeting a broader range of community needs. So this is the city's opportunity to propose something that meets more of the city's interests, and we've been happy to participate and hear what the communities had to say. So it's been a very engaging process, and I'm happy to participate.
Thanks, Jesse. We also have a number of members from our consultant team on. You've all heard from Kendall with RGS. She's been leading our outreach process. I also saw Jeff Schwein with Green Dot. And on our team, we also have RCAA, Galloway, and we have another slide, in fact, right here showing our partners. I think for the sake of time, maybe we'll skip the introductions of everyone on the project team.
Except I just want to give everybody a little hint here. This is Kendall. So many of you have participated in Zoom meetings before. I'm sure you're all Zoom gods and goddesses at this point. But I'd like to point out for all of you that at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a number of little icons. One of them says participants. And if you click on participants, it gives you an opportunity for various little things you can do. And one of them is raise hand. So we're going to ask you tonight as we move through the presentation, Todd's going to give the overview. And then when we open up to question and answer, just so we can make sure to capture everybody, we're going to ask you to use the raise hand function. When you raise your hand, I'll let Todd know your hand's up. We'll call on you so that you can then ask your question. The entire presentation tonight and workshop is being recorded and will be posted to our website, so you'll be able to go back later and look at this again or share this information with other folks. But we're going to ask everybody to stay muted unless you've raised your hand and are called upon, just so we can get to as many comments as possible. And again, we're up around 53 right now, and they're still coming in, so we've got a good crowd tonight. We want to make sure to hear from everyone, so use the raise hand, and not like this, but with the actual raise hand little thing. So back to you, Todd.
Thanks, Kendall. And I'm assuming we'll also accept chat questions.
We absolutely will. The preference is, of course, to do the raise hand so that everyone can hear at the same time, but the chat function is also down there. It's just to the right of participants, and we'll be capturing that as well. So whatever is your level of comfort, you can do that. And then, as I think Marcel or others mentioned, our website is also available and continuing to take comments online. So you've got a multitude of ways to share your ideas and your concerns and or feedback based on what we're going to hear tonight.
Great, thank you. And I actually kind of skipped over the agenda slide, but essentially what we're here to do tonight is talk about where we are in the process, what we've come up with, and really get your feedback on our concepts. There's some background issues that Jesse's going to speak about as well in terms of some of the environmental considerations that we have along the corridor and some of those issues. So that'll give me an opportunity to pause. And then also we want to talk about next steps and then really just open it up for Q&A. So we may stop along the way a few times for questions if there are any. Otherwise, we'll reserve a good chunk of time at the end of the presentation for that as well. Without further ado, as Kendall mentioned, the outreach effort has been ongoing online. It has maybe been a little bit quiet over the summer, but we are back, and the ebb and flow of the project schedule kind of affects the posting and frequency, but we're back and we're taking it through the finish line. And so look out for updates to that, especially as we round out our second workshop tonight and then gear up for governing board hearings. That would be our next public meeting. In fact, it's not listed here on the side, but those are, again, another opportunity for public input as well. So we've had the workshop in November, we have the workshop tonight. We had 2 rounds of focus group meetings. Those each had 2 days at least. I've lost track. Those were very engaging. And yeah, again, so the next opportunity will not be a full workshop, but governing board hearing presentation. So stay tuned for those dates as well as those come up.
And thank you for the business community for taking part in our business survey, which is also available online. We had over 147 people participate in that. And I see some folks from Bayshore Mall tonight. So Jennifer, thank you for being with us. We're very excited to have you participate.
Thank you, Kendall. So project status, I want to review kind of why we're doing this, just really briefly. I think most of you are familiar with what we've done, but we just want to go through it for the purposes of a reminder. The corridor, what we set out to study is essentially the travel demand today and in the future, looking at congestion, and another metric that's a little bit hard to wrap our heads around sometimes, but travel time reliability, which is essentially the infrequent congestion that occurs. And so it's not an average congested condition, but it happens often. And so you pre-plan your trip ahead of time for longer because maybe you've been stuck in congestion earlier the week before or something like that. And a lot of that has to do with safety. So we talk about collision rates and trying to reduce the collision rates. And whereas safety is obviously a problem for fatal and severe injury, you know, we don't want to have people getting hurt on the highway or worse, but it also affects travel time reliability for those little fender benders. So where maybe nobody is hurt, but it's going to jam up the system. And I think that happens quite frequently on Eureka Broadway. Access management is a topic of concern as well as multimodal improvement. So those are definitely front and center in our alternatives. We have gone really full swing into the multimodal improvements, especially the crossings of the highway, trying to lower the level of traffic stress on the facility itself, making sure that the community is connected from east to west, residential to commercial destinations, employment, and north-south as well. We see this project as an opportunity to enhance the corridor generally from a beautification perspective and an environmental perspective, make it a more resilient corridor, make it more prepared for emergency situations should those occur. If there's an evacuation or something, we want to make sure that Eureka Broadway doesn't end up causing more stress and pain. So those are all of the things we're looking at, and it is a lot, but some of the main ones that I think we'd like to highlight in terms of how we're going to measure the success of the project once we select that final alternative is, again, that congestion and travel time reliability. This corridor ends up being quite congested quite frequently. On an average day, the traffic volumes are actually not higher than are needed to support the corridor. There should not be, essentially what I'm saying is, there should not be an excess of congestion based on strictly like the modeling of the corridor, but there is because of things like the access frequency of driveways, the crashes, like I mentioned earlier, those little fender benders and rear end collisions cause congestion to occur. And I'm sure everyone that's driven the corridor can attest to the fact that it can be a frustrating corridor to get through from point to point at times, but maybe not every time. Level of traffic stress. So this is how we measure the comfort level of cyclists. We can do this for pedestrians as well. They're oftentimes pretty closely correlated. And as you can see here on this map to the right, Broadway itself is a high stress corridor. And so it shows up as red. We have some pockets of low stress corridors, but then there's that Broadway in the middle of it that prevents people from connecting across. And that's a problem because you can't, even if you're on, let's say, Fairfield or Harris and you're on a decent bikeway, you can't get across Broadway. And so there's a major gap in the connectivity there, and we've addressed that, we believe, with our plan. Some of the safety concerns that stand out, the OTS, Office of Traffic Safety rankings are published every basis, but there's a little bit of a lag. So the last year we have access to right now is 2017. Eureka Broadway, within its group, which is similar sized cities, actually ranked first in terms of total fatal and injury collisions. So that is an issue we definitely want to resolve. Ranked second out of the 94 cities for pedestrian collisions and third for bicyclists. So those are front and center. Again, that's a collision issue, a safety issue, but it's also a multimodal issue. The top three crash types are unsafe vehicle speed, and most associated with that are rear-end collisions. Oftentimes, those are not an injury collision. Those can be a low-severity crash, but they do result in severities on Broadway as well. I think they represent about 30% or so of the injury crashes. Vehicle pedestrian crashes are another big source of fatalities and severe injury. 40% of the FSI crashes are caused by vehicle ped collisions, even though they only represent 16% of all the injury crashes. So they represent an outsized number of the severe outcomes. So we want to address that. Broadside collisions are another major source of severe collisions as well. Other kind of contributors to the collision issues are improper turning. So that's essentially running off the road, DUI, and under the influence of drug. That's another category. I think that represented about 10% of the injury collisions, and traffic signals and signs. So that's folks running red lights, running stop signs, and things of that nature. That's a lower percentage, but those are all the major crash types that we're dealing with. So I want to review a little bit where we've been in the past on the corridor, and in terms of planning it, where we've been over the last few months and where we are tonight. So in the past, there's been discussion of bypasses, of widening Broadway, of a Fairfield couplet, and those have all been kind of abandoned, and they've been abandoned for quite some time due to, in some cases, environmental impacts or just cost, economic impacts, right-of-way impacts, maybe an inconsistency between context, like the Fairfield couplet would be running through a neighborhood. So those have all been put aside. Over the course of the summer, we developed 8 new alternatives. And we've since narrowed that down to essentially 1 or 2. And some of those including improving the existing alignment, some couplet options that we looked at, Coster Street, Waterfront Drive, looking at different ways to split the directionality of the corridor, maybe going to 3 lanes on Broadway or 4 lanes where you have 2 northbound and 1 southbound with a center turn lane. And so I'm going to go through how we evaluated those and where we ended up. And then multimodal improvements were along for the ride the entire time. So without stalling on this for too long, these are the 8 alternatives that we more recently had in front of the focus group stakeholders. So improving the existing alignment, the waterfront couplet, a double couplet, which I'll show the illustration of in a few minutes, the Coster couplet, then the 3-lane Broadway, so again, road dieting Broadway and adding Coster, then a variation on that where we add a Coster couplet or connection and a waterfront connection, and then the same with the 4-lane Broadway. I don't want to dwell on these for too long. I just want to give everyone the impression of how far we've gone in terms of assessing the options here we have. But ultimately, none of these are still remaining on the table except for a couple, which we'll get to. These are illustrations of all these different concepts. And these will all be documented in the report as well. So the types of improvements we looked at for multimodal included buffered bike lanes. Those are a class 2 bike lane facility. Those are shown, I don't know if you guys can see my cursor on the top left here. So it's a 6-foot, 5 to 6 foot bike lane with a 2-foot buffer painted on the road. We looked at class 4 bikeways, and those remain in our preferred concept. These are bikeways that have a physical separation from the roadway. And that can take the form of a bollard, of a planter, little raised median, They can actually be, let me get this out of the way, they can be two-way cycle tracks as well. And they can be at sidewalk grade. They can also be parking protected bikeways where you have a row of parked cars separating the cyclists from the travelway. Those are all variations of the Class 4 concept. We looked at new Class 1 paths. You're all familiar, I'm sure, with the waterfront trail. And that is an example of that, where in some cases it's off on its own, in some cases it's adjacent to a roadway. And again, that level of traffic stress is a nice graphic that illustrates that, where the LTS-4 is really only suitable for the strong and fearless riders. We want to shoot for a Broadway corridor that is appropriate for the interested but concerned group. And so these are the folks that may feel comfortable riding a bike, but they're concerned about the stressful environment and the lack of safe facilities for them. And that's where we can get the most bang for our buck. If we can convince people that are interested in cycling, there are a lot of societal benefits to that in terms of promoting good health and good reduction in auto dependency and a lot of other things that I can get into in more detail. So this is the assessment framework that we're working towards. And the reason we use this is prepared by Caltrans. It's called the Smart Mobility Framework. It's really important that we keep going back to this. So anytime we start looking at an alternative, we have to keep thinking about how does this apply within the Smart Mobility Framework. And the reason that's so important is because this is going to be an expensive improvement. And it's going to need grant funding, competitive grant funding against all other projects in the state. And so we want to be sure that our project measures well against all these different criteria so that when it comes time to apply for grants, we're checking all the boxes we can in terms of really making sure that the project benefits all these different categories that the state of California looks at when they're evaluating the corridor. And luckily, those all generally align with the goals of the community as well in terms of where we're going with this project. I'm not going to go through all of these. It's just a lot of talking, but in general, you can look at it and read while I speak. One I want to highlight is the local business visibility. We wanted to make sure that we did not design this corridor in a bubble. We are very cognizant of the businesses along the corridor, and we went to great lengths to come up with alternatives, and we're hopeful that our solutions will meet the needs of the business community and not impede access to not impede access to the corridor. Kendall, I'm getting some weird text on the screen. I'm not sure what's going on with that.
I'm not seeing those at this point. I'm looking at the chat room, so.
Okay, somebody may have just direct messaged me. I'll ignore it. Okay, so this is an example of the evaluation sheets we created for each concept, and so we looked at each one of those criteria. I wonder if there's a way.
You might check that only the presenter can share. Sometimes anybody can share.
Yeah, we've already got that in, Mark. Thank you, though. Are you seeing it in chat, Todd, or are you seeing it someplace else?
It's like popping up right on my screen.
You know what I'm going to say? It's not coming up on mine, but I've had this happen before. I'm going to ask you to stop the presentation for just a second, Todd, and go out and then come back in. Let's see if I can find anybody else seeing it too. I'm not, so. Oh, well.
Yes, it is there.
All right, well, I'm going to ask everybody to pop.
I like Richard. Richard is a good guy, you know.
All right, so whoever it is very bored and probably just has nothing better to do with their time. I'm just going to set a couple other things here. Hold on. Meeting. Okay. Would you stop sharing your screen for just a second, Todd?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. And okay, Todd, I'm going to let you come back in again. I've just made you host.
Okay.
That helps it there. Oh, nice. Nice. Very nice. I see it now. Okay. Hold on here. Mark, would you...
Ugly nigger piece of shit.
Everybody go out for a second and then come back in, okay? Just everybody go out.
Oh, my shit.